Donald Trump has called Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, he's the black candidate for governor of North Carolina. Donald Trump has called him Martin Luther King on steroids. Trump then added, you know what? He's better than King. Pastor Mark Robinson is running for governor of North Carolina. Now, in the past, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who's also a pastor, has referred to gay people as maggots, just like Dr. King. He's come out against abortion in all cases, including rape and incest, and said women wouldn't need abortions if they learned to control their appetites. He's denied the Holocaust, trashed immigrants, gay marriage, and of course the transgender community. He's told audiences that some people just need killing. And Donald Trump says he's better than Dr. King. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson not only denies climate change, he believes science shouldn't be taught in our elementary schools. This is the Republican nominee for governor of North Carolina. Well, he finally offended Donald Trump and most of the Republican Party. All that other stuff I told you about, fine, no problem. But he's gone ahead and finally done something where Republicans are now saying, okay, now you've crossed the line, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. The problem is they can't get rid of him. It's too late. He's going to lose the race for governor. And he's also one of the reasons Trump is now going to lose North Carolina's 16 electoral votes. So, what did Pastor Mark Robinson say and do that made MAGA Republicans finally sit up and clutch their pearls? Nothing any other Republican hasn't said or done. Nothing any other white Republican hasn't said or done. You see, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson is black, and what he just got caught doing and saying would be fine if he were white. You see, Mark Robinson, Pastor Mark Robinson, is a very, very sick man. He's very sick. I'll show you. But he's no sicker than any of the other MAGA Republicans endorsed by Donald Trump. Yes, he's sick, but he's black. More on all that later on. This is the mop-up for September 24th, 2024. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. Please like this episode. That way you'll always be in my feed. And of course, if you want to help out, share. That's the best. The only reason I have an audience is because of my audience. So if you want to help me, share. I've noticed the chat room when I do this show live on YouTube keeps going on and on after the live show ends, and then it shuts down. So if we want to keep the chat room going, I'm going to try something this morning. If you want to continue the conversation after the live show, I'm inviting you to head over to the David Feldman Show Facebook page. I only have a couple of hundred followers, and I've posted the link to this episode. I don't know, somebody said try this. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live show, send your viewers over to your Facebook page. I'm going to try it after the live show this morning. Good versus evil, that's going to be our debate watch party. We're doing it again October 1st on Zoom. It's Coach Walsh versus J.D. Vance. Doors open at 8:30 p.m. If you would like to attend, I've put the registration link in the description of this episode, or you can go to shopdavidfeldman.com. The link is over there, or to davidfeldmanshow.com. October 1st, 2024, it's going to be another debate watch party. The doors open at 8:30 p.m. We'll watch the debate at 9, and then we'll talk. And please check out shopdavidfeldman.com if you would like more information. Ohio Democrat incumbent Sherrod Brown is running against Republican car salesman Bernie Moreno, who has never held elective office before, but he's been endorsed by Donald Trump. During a town hall meeting in Warren County, Ohio, Friday night, Moreno complained that too many single-issue female voters are only concerned about abortion. What's their problem? He asked. According to WCMH News, Bernie Moreno told the group, quote, the left has a lot of single-issue voters. Sadly, by the way, there's a lot of suburban women that are like, listen, abortion is it. If I can't have an abortion in this country, whenever I want one, I will vote for somebody else. Okay, it's a little crazy, by the way, but especially for women that are like past 50, I'm thinking to myself, I don't think that's an issue for you, unquote. That would be Bernie Moreno, who's running against Sherrod Brown for Senate in Ohio. According to new reporting by Lauren Saucer from KFF Health News, Amari Marsh, you're looking at her right now, a black junior attending South Carolina University, was arrested last year after suffering a miscarriage and forced to spend 22 days in jail, held without bond. She faced 20 years to life after a police officer in South Carolina charged the black undergrad with murder and homicide by child abuse. She had a miscarriage, and a South Carolina police officer arrested her, charging her with murder, homicide, through child abuse. South Carolina has some of the most draconian abortion laws in the country. Released from jail, she was forced to wear an ankle bracelet for 13 months, living under house arrest all the way up until last month when a grand jury finally cleared her. Does that answer your question, Bernie Moreno? Is Texas in play so early? Does control of the Senate all come down to Montana? As I've been reporting for 6 weeks, Democrats are in danger of losing the Senate, as Montana Democrat John Tester's polling numbers seem to be slipping. Without John Tester winning his seat in Montana, Republicans, it seems, are going to gain control of the Senate. Now, I've reported earlier in the month there is some hope, but it will be complicated and not quite what the Democrats want. I'm talking about an independent in Nebraska named Dan Osborne. He's not a Democrat. He is a union leader who led the 2021 Kellogg strike in Nebraska that resulted in higher pay and more benefits for the workers. Now, in this race for Senate in Nebraska, Dan Osborne's relying on a coalition of populists and union members. He is not claiming to be a Democrat, and he's not promising to caucus with the Democrats after he wins. That means he'd be like Bernie. So that means if you want Dan Osborne to make concessions, if Chuck Schumer wants Dan Osborne to vote and caucus with the Democrats are going to have to make concessions. He also hasn't asked for an endorsement from the Democrats, especially since he believes an endorsement from the Democrats would contaminate him. This speaks volumes to how the Democrats have failed to convince Plains States voters that they're on the side of the working class. How is that possible? That Plains States voters no longer believe Democrats are on the side of the working class. Ever since Clinton and then Obama sidled up to Wall Street and made concessions for their money, Republicans have been able to deceive Plain States voters that they're the party looking out for the little guy. Can you imagine Democrats being radioactive in places like Nebraska or South Dakota? The working class and the poor out there no longer trust Democrats to do good by them. Farmers do not trust the Democrats to do good by them. This is why John Tester, Democrat in Montana, and our independent friend Dan Osborne in Nebraska are saying to the Democrats, no thanks, I'm going to do this on my own. Democrats, they're saying, will only hurt us. Dan Osborne is running against Republican incumbent Senator Deb Fischer. The Democrats have decided not to run anyone against her. They've given up on Nebraska, which is odd because there's one electoral vote in Omaha that Kamala Harris needs, since Nebraska is only one of two states that are not winner take all when it comes to the Electoral College. I'll have much more on this in a few minutes about the Electoral College. There have been some polls showing Dan Osborne beating Republican Deb Fischer, but most polls show the race either tied or Deb Fischer, the Republican, leading by just 2 points, well within the margin of error. Well, we might have solved our Tester problem here. There may be another senator who, if the Democrats are willing to work with this independent Dan Osborne, they might be able to keep the Republicans from getting control of the Senate. But have you noticed you're not hearing too much about Dan Osborne? Have you noticed he's running under the radar? Well, he's doing this on purpose. He doesn't want to nationalize the campaign, especially since he doesn't want to get any assistance from Democratic consultants. Now, if Senator John Tester cannot turn things around in Montana, this story coming out of Nebraska, Dan Osborne, is going to get bigger, especially in October. The problem is Democrats, especially Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, they don't want Dan Osborne. He's a problem. Schumer doesn't want to depend on an independent union activist like Dan Osborne to keep him as Senate Majority Leader, because Dan Osborne would be the polar opposite of Joe Manchin. Dan Osborne would pull the party to the left in order to keep the majority. If they have to depend on Dan Osborne, well, the Democrats in the Senate would have to move to the left. And in order to pass Kamala Harris's legislative agenda, it would have to have more goodies for the left, for unions, less goodies for corporate America. The same way Joe Manchin gutted Build Back Better because it was too liberal, Dan Osborne, with such a slim majority in the Senate, would be able to gut key components of Kamala Harris's legislative agenda that didn't tack sufficiently enough to the left. Now, Harris is courting Wall Street with a strategic ambiguity on reining in greed. She hasn't been too specific as to how she's planning to rein in greed because she wants Wall Street to support her. She's sounding, now please pay attention to me on this, she's sounding a little less like the populist Joe Biden turned out to be, and sounding exactly like how Joe Biden claimed he would be when he was running back in 2020. In other words, Kamala Harris is no different from Joe Biden, the most consequential president since FDR. That's what Bernie says. They're both political animals. Biden was pushed to the left because he couldn't survive without the growing populist wing inside the Democratic Party. Now, what we're beginning to hear is that the populist wing of the Democratic Party no longer has the same clout it did 4 years ago. We're hearing that Democrats, this is what they're saying, and this is what the lobbyists in the Beltway want Democrats to believe, that Democrats and voters have lost their appetite for big ticket, big government legislation. That is just the same crap we've been hearing since Bill Clinton was president. Now, Kamala Harris is going to win as long as we don't take her victory for granted. And we're going to have to fight to push her and the Democrats to the left, the same way we had a fight to push Joe Biden and the Democrats to the left. Nothing would help us, our wing of the Democratic Party, more than Dan Osborne, an independent, winning the Senate seat in Nebraska. We need independents who caucus with the Democrats, independents like Bernie Sanders who caucus with the Democrats, to make certain that Democrats don't take the left for granted. Right now, keeping the Senate does not look good. John Tester, are you working for John Tester? Have you called John Tester's office, johntester.com? Are you phone banking for John Tester? It's not looking good. That race is not looking good. And soon you'll be hearing more and more about Dan Osborne. Are you working for Dan Osborne? This is a crisis. And like any crisis, an opportunity. A slim majority, with Democrats having a slim majority in the Senate, and Dan Osborne serving as the ersatz Joe Manchin. There's a lot of power that Dan Osborne, union leader, can have if he beats Deb Fischer in Nebraska. So I'll be talking about Nebraska a little later on. There's some more dirty stuff that the Republicans are pulling. Okay, there is some new hope that Democrats can keep the Senate majority by beating Ted Cruz down in Texas, who's running for re-election. Now, last week I reported on a new Morning Consult poll showing Democratic Congressman Colin Allred leading Republican incumbent Ted Cruz by 2 percentage points. I warned that poll seemed like an outlier since Cruz has been running way ahead of Allred all summer. But now a new poll out this morning from the Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation shows Allred only trailing Ted Cruz by 3 points, just outside the margin of error. So, things are happening very quickly around the country. Where does Texas fit on the spectrum in terms of momentum? On August 1st, Donald Trump was leading Kamala Harris by 11 points. That's according to the polling averages in Texas. In 6 weeks, she's narrowed Trump's lead down to 6 points. Texas has 40 electoral votes. Flipping it blue would be that once-in-a-generation rewrite of the electoral map I've been talking about. Will it happen? Can it happen? As of this morning, absolutely not. But as of 3 weeks ago, there were a lot of impossibilities that now seem in our horizon. Shares of Trump Media, the holding company for Truth Social, extended their losing streak on Monday to 6 days, hitting the lowest levels since going public back in March. As of this morning, before the opening bell, 1 share of Trump Media now sells for $12.15, down nearly 20% in less than a week. When Trump media first went public, Trump, the majority stakeholder, was said to own nearly $3 to $4 billion worth of shares. That value is now worth something like $1.3 billion. Like Trump's real estate, nobody knows what he can actually get for the stock until he tries to unload it, and the mere act of selling that stock will drive the price down even further. Donald Trump said on Sunday this will be the last time he runs for president. I guess he's assuming that there won't be any need for elections after he wins in November. But during an interview with the odious Cheryl Atkinson on Sunday, Trump said he hopes I don't lose, and then added, if I do lose, and I don't think I'm going to lose, this is it. When Trump was asked if he would go through with his promise to deport millions of immigrants, and if so, wouldn't that be next to impossible? Trump said, no, it wouldn't be impossible. It would be easy since migrants have serial numbers. Yes, and right next to their serial number is their make and model and sell-by date. Serial numbers. I think he's planning to give them serial numbers. Trump was asked whether he was worried that mass deportations would result in separating mothers from their children, like what happened when he was president. Trump said, quote, well, yes to mass deportation, even of women and children. You put one wrong person onto a bus or onto an airplane, and your radical left lunatics will try and make it sound like the worst thing that's ever happened. I'm laughing because Christian evangelicals think this is the battle between good and evil, this election, and he's not the evil one. You put one wrong person onto a bus or onto an airplane, and your radical left lunatics try to make it sound like it's the worst thing that ever happened. I believe this is part of the sequel to Project 2025 called Project 1933 Berlin. Aaron Blake, writing over at the Washington Post this morning, says that socialism is now more popular in America than Project 2025, which is why Trump is lying when he insists, I never heard of Project 2025, never heard of it. Didn't know who David Duke was when David Duke endorsed him in 2016. Never heard of Project 25. Blake over at the Post cites a new NBC poll showing 18% of Americans have a favorable view of socialism, while only 13% have a favorable view of Project 2025, which, when you think about it, is just socialism for the richest 1%. CNN reports that Melania Trump was paid $240,000 this year to speak before the Log Cabin Republicans, a group of gay conservatives who vote Republican. The speech before the Log Cabin Republicans was delivered at Mar-a-Lago. The problem, according to CNN, is the Log Cabin Republicans didn't pay her $250,000, but she reported that she earned $250,000 for her speech. According to campaign financial disclosure forms, Melania Trump collected $250,000 for the speech before the Log Cabin Republicans at Mar-a-Lago, but nobody knows who cut the check. Let me just try. I'm just going to put on my thinking cap and try to venture a guess and suggest this money is part of a money laundering scheme. I guess it would be the first time Donald Trump ever tried to launder dirty money. I bet this is the first time. So, I'm guessing here, Donald wants to give her $250,000, and he wants to give her $250,000 that was given to him by nefarious people, probably in cash, but it's got to look legitimate. So Mar-a-Lago cuts her a check, And they claim it's from the log cabin Republicans. You see the speech, I'm just guessing here. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Donald Trump has never laundered money before. So I'm just guessing this is maybe how he tried as an experiment. Melania's speech was delivered at Mar-a-Lago, which means the log cabin Republicans paid anywhere between $40,000 to $60,000 for the use of the ballroom at Mar-a-Lago. You know, 40 to 60,000, maybe 100,000 for the room, the liquor, the food, the cockroaches. I'm guessing how this would work if Donald Trump wanted to launder dirty money. I don't think he would. I mean, I'm the one with the sick mind. But if he were trying to launder money and get $250,000 to his soon-to-be ex-wife, I'm guessing Mar-a-Lago reports that the log cabin Republicans paid $500,000 for use of the club, the liquor, the food, the cockroaches, the rats. That way, Trump, and again, I'm just guessing here, Trump can take dirty money from one of his political action committees or from some oligarch, and he gets to clean it by putting it through Mar-a-Lago. He gives Melania $250,000 of that dirty money, and then it just shows up as income from the overall fee that Trump and Mar-a-Lago claims the log cabin Republicans paid for the use of Mar-a-Lago. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying if you want to figure out who cut the check for $250,000 for Melania's speech, I'm just guessing. That's what do I know? And I don't think Donald Trump would ever do that because that's money laundering and that's illegal. I mean, that's not done. Manhattan real estate, people who run Manhattan real estate never do something like this. This is the mop-up for September 24th, 2024. I'm David Feldman. Again, please like this episode so I remain in your feed. And, of course, share this. I read all your comments. Please leave a comment. I read all your comments. We're doing a debate watch party on October 1st. It's a battle between good and evil. Coach Walsh versus J.D. Vance, the race-baiting, opportunistic senator from Ohio, Republican liar, J.D. Vance. Join David Feldman and friends as we watch the debate and then discuss it afterwards. Now, your registration fee will be $3 to keep the MAGA lunatics out and to cover some of the costs. It's secured by PayPal, which means you don't need to join PayPal. PayPal accepts all credit cards. They process your payment to make sure your information remains private. There's a registration link in the episode description of this show, and I'm going to do a better job making sure when you sign up, you get your registration link. Everybody got the registration link, like 3 people didn't, but you're going to get 2 or 3 emails with the registration link to make sure you all get your registration link. Doors open at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. The debate starts at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then a discussion will follow. I'll record an episode of my audio podcast. Not doing it on YouTube. It's a private party for just the listeners where I get to talk and meet the listeners. The last debate party was fantastic because Kamala kicked his ass and I got to meet listeners. The one before that was fantastic because I got to meet the listeners, but it didn't go the way. Anyway, I look forward to chatting with you. And if you would like a link, it's in the description to this episode, or go to shopdavidfeldman.com or go to davidfeldmanshow.com and check out shopdavidfeldman.com. Are you looking to buy your MAGA friend a gift, pick up some of these MAGA caps. There's the MAGA cap for your MAGA moron friend who can't read, and you won't notice on the back it says low IQ individual. I kind of like this. You got to get a gift for your MAGA friend, or MAGA for Kamala. I would wear that. And MAGA moron, which, I think most MAGA morons would wear that. There's also the worst case scenario map, proving that Kamala can't lose, and I'm going to be going over that once again with you because some of you are getting nervous. Donald Trump, how he sees himself on a coffee mug. Genghis Khan, C-O-N. 30 credible sexual assault allegations against Donald Trump. The Predator mug. Donald Trump in Edvard Munch's The Scream. It's a beautiful mug. I keep putting it in the dishwasher, and it just looks beautiful. If you want to get a MAGA moron friend a gift, the Trump 28 mug, and of course the David Feldman Show collection. Is that it? Oh, still a Democrat? Let's move on here. Made in Los Estados Unidos, the Trump fart filtration mask. Come on. The chef's apron that says, I hope you're in the mood for diarrhea. And and check out the debate watch party. Is that it? Okay. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. By the way, I learned we did a benefit for the DNC with Congressman Jamie Raskin, and I was able to give away coffee mugs, and I figured out how to do it. So I think I'm going to give away 2 or 3 coffee mugs at the debate watch party. It's pretty. This company shows me how to do it. It's pretty easy to give away coffee mugs. So I haven't figured out how I'm going to give away 3 coffee mugs, but I will. Okay, that's the debate watch party, October 1st, 8:30 p.m. Kamala Harris accepted an invitation from CNN to participate in another debate with Donald Trump. It's scheduled for October 23rd. CNN wants to do another debate on October 23rd because they've really earned the right to host another debate. Dana Bash, Jake Tapper, you did such a magnificent job fact-checking Donald Trump the last time. Trump has turned down the offer. He's saying it's too late to debate. He said everyone will have already begun voting, which is partly true. There are reports, however, that some of Trump's top campaign aides are urging him to accept the invitation. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, out on the campaign trail, continues to taunt Trump, accusing him of being afraid of debating her. You might remember throughout their first matchup, Harris was able to reel Trump in as he never failed to take the bait. It will be interesting if once again Trump can't resist and takes the debate bait. Although I think this time, I don't know. What do you think? Leave a comment. I don't think he's going to debate her again. There's a rash, and I do mean a rash, of new polling out this morning. Ignore it, showing the presidential race tightening in some key battleground states. Ignore these polls. I usually tell people not to ignore polls. It's what's going on now is they're trying to make you jumpy. They want you agitated. The horse race is over. Now listen to me. The horse race is over. Kamala Harris won. And what you need to worry about is Trump and the Republicans working to throw this election into the House of Representatives. Don't worry about the polls. She's going to win. And I went over this on my last show, and I'm going to go over something new that they're planning. They know they can't win. So they've got a new plan to try to throw it into the House of Representatives. You see this map? This is the worst case scenario map, right? Harris gets to 270. 270 is the magic number. Anybody who gets to 270 becomes president. She wins with the blue wall, and she's going to win the blue wall. Now, if neither candidate gets to 270, it goes into the House of Representatives. That's what the Republicans wanted in 2020. That's what they're fighting for right now. Ignore the polls. If you're watching the polls now, you're taking your eyes off the steal. And the steal is get this into the House of Representatives. Look at this map, okay? This is the worst case scenario where Kamala Harris only has to win the blue wall. It gets her to 270, okay? But look at the sea of red. There are more red states than blue states. And as I keep telling you, and I will keep telling you, if it gets thrown into the House of Representatives, each state gets one vote. Wyoming gets one vote, and California gets one vote. Okay? That means Trump would lose the Electoral College and the popular vote, but if they can get this into the House of Representatives, he wins. The steal is afoot. The plan is afoot. And that's what you need to worry about. Harris is going to win. She's going to win the popular vote, and she's going to win the blue wall, which is why Trump and the Republicans are already working to get this thrown into the House of Representatives. There are only 3 key battleground states. Forget Georgia. Forget North Carolina. Forget Arizona. Forget Nevada. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And the news media is once again committing journalistic malpractice by getting you to worry about the wrong things. See, a lot of news organizations spend a fortune on their polling units, and they will over-report their own polls to justify these expenditures. There was a big poll that the New York Times put out over the weekend, and I love the New York Times. And they put all their reporters on the poll to report on the poll. It's just one poll. It's not the polling averages. And all that matters, because if you saw the reporting about the New York Times poll, it's Trump is gaining ground in the Sun Belt. It's looking tighter and tighter. No, it's not. It's not looking tighter. In the polling averages, when it comes to the blue wall, Kamala Harris is up by 2 in Wisconsin, she's up by 2 in Michigan, and she's up by 2 in Pennsylvania. She is up by 2 in Pennsylvania. She wins Pennsylvania, she wins the blue wall. And the Republicans know this. Look at this map. It's everything you need to know and everything you need to worry about. She doesn't need to win Arizona. She doesn't need to win North Carolina. She doesn't need to win Georgia or even Nevada. Look at this map. This is all you need to know. Kamala Harris has to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and that gets her to 270. Trump and the Republicans know that she's going to win Pennsylvania. They also know the electoral map is a sea of red. Look at it. What you need to be worried about, not the polls. I'll let you know when she's having trouble in Pennsylvania. What you need to worry about is the Republican plan to get this election thrown into the House of Representatives. That is the plan. And that's why they're focusing on Nebraska this week. Nebraska and Maine are the only 2 states that are not winner take all. Now, this is Biden's win back in 2020. This is the map, okay? He gets 306. Trump gets 232. This is the map, okay? You see, one of Nebraska's 5 electoral votes went to Biden in 2020, and one of Maine's 4 electoral votes went to Trump in 2020. And Republicans are once again trying to turn Nebraska into a winner-take-all state. They failed earlier in the year, but as polling shows or makes them feel optimistic, this is their last hope. They're hoping that somehow Trump is going to win North Carolina. He's not, but they're fantasizing that he's going to win Georgia, probably not, Arizona, and they're betting that he's going to put Nevada in the Trump column. He's not. But this is their only hope, is to blow up this worst case scenario map, okay? Where Harris only needs to win the blue wall. This is the only option Republicans have right now, is to get it into the House of Representatives. Now, everybody who is looking at the fundamentals of the polling knows she's going to win the blue wall. Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are just solidifying for Harris. So this is the worst case scenario map. Now watch. Harris wins the blue wall. She gets to 270. Trump gets 268. Okay? In Nebraska, she gets 1 vote. In Maine, Trump gets 1 vote. Okay? Lindsey Graham missed voting in the Senate last Wednesday, so he could fly to Nebraska to urge Republicans. They have a Republican-controlled legislature and a Republican governor. He urged them to change Nebraska into a winner-take-all state. They want that one electoral vote. Graham, according to Politico, told GOP leaders in Nebraska, quote, my friends in Nebraska, that one electoral vote could be the difference between Harris being president and not. And she's a disaster for Nebraska and the world, unquote. Okay? If Nebraska switches to a winner-take-all, all 5 electoral votes would go to Trump, and this is what it looks like. Here we go. What do you see here? She wins the blue wall, and it's a tie, 269 to 269. What happens if there's a tie? It goes right into the House of Representatives, where Trump wins. See what happens? Harris wins the blue wall. She doesn't get that 1 vote in Nebraska. Trump gets it, 269 to 269, House of Representatives. Look at the sea of red. There are more red states than blue states. You got to know that. This is the plan. This was the plan in 2020. This is the plan in 2024 to get this election into the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, Democrats in Maine have threatened to call their state legislature back into session to switch Maine to a winner-take-all state if Nebraska becomes a winner-take-all state. If Maine becomes a winner-take-all state, then that 1 vote for Trump would go to Harris, okay? Which means, now look at this, if Nebraska becomes a winner-take-all state and Maine responds by turning Maine into a winner-take-all state, then Harris gets to 270, she wins, and Donald Trump gets to 268. Well, you think there's nothing to worry about, right? With Nebraska, because Maine, it's mutual assured destruction, and Kamala will win. Well, you have to remember something. Right after the election on November 6th, Donald Trump is going to claim millions and millions and millions of migrants were bused into key battleground states to vote for Kamala Harris. And I promise you, Speaker Mike Johnson, this is the plan. Mike Johnson is going to appoint the Republican chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, who was on the phone with Donald Trump throughout the day on January 6th. He's going to appoint Jim Jordan to hold hearings on voter fraud. They're already holding hearings on whether Coach Walsh is a Manchurian candidate. I'm not making this up. They're holding hearings as to whether or not Coach Walsh got turned by the Chinese when he visited China. I promise you, Jim Jordan, on November 6th, after Trump loses, Jim Jordan will begin holding hearings on election fraud. He won't prove election fraud. He will just sow enough doubt that MAGA morons will begin gathering outside the Capitol, outside state capitals all over the country, and the Republicans will try to convince the Supreme Court there's sufficient doubt about the integrity of the 2024 election that it should be decided in the House of Representatives. We are dealing with fascists. Jim Jordan, it's in Liz Cheney's book. He says, I don't care. We just have to win. These are fascists who don't believe in democracy or winning fair and square. In fact, they get off. Donald Trump gets off on stealing. So, once again, this is the map where Maine and Nebraska become winner-take-all states. Kamala gets 270, Trump gets 268. Again, Maine says if Nebraska switches to winner-take-all, we're going to switch to winner-take-all. The problem with Maine is it's harder and it's going to take longer to switch Maine to a winner-take-all state than it would be to switch Nebraska. Maine's switch to a winner-take-all would probably go into effect after November 5th, which means the Supreme Court would have to decide whether their switch applies to this election. Maine would take longer than Nebraska to switch, so the Supreme Court would have to decide if their winner-take-all status can go into effect. I think it would have to go into effect by December 14th when the Electoral College meets and casts their votes. But the Supreme Court, with their 6-3 Republican majority, would most likely say, well, the election was held with Maine not being a winner-take-all state. You're by changing the law after the votes have been cast, you are disenfranchising the rural voters of Maine who cast their ballot for Donald Trump. A legitimate argument could be made. The steal is afoot. Get Nebraska to go winner-take-all before November 5th, and the Supreme Court won't allow Maine to change the law after the election, before the Electoral College meets on, is it December 15th, December 14th, or is it the 16th? Anyway, now, there was some good news on Monday. The one vote for Kamala Harris in Nebraska is going to come from the district surrounding Omaha, Nebraska. That is a reliably blue district, and it will go to Harris. Mike McDonnell is the state senator representing Omaha. He's a Republican who, up until last year, was a Democrat because Omaha is blue. But he switched sides because of his views on abortion. So this year he became a Republican. Without him, it is believed the Republicans don't have enough votes in Nebraska to pass a bill that would change Nebraska to a winner-take-all. He's a Republican. And the people he represents are Democrats. It's Omaha, and they want to vote for Harris. So he says on Monday, I can't get on board the switch. McDonnell said with fewer than 40 days left in the election, it's too late. And he said, my constituents want to be heard. You can be certain, however, with fewer than 40 days left, Trump and the Republicans are not going to let this go. Trump tried desperately back in the spring to get Nebraska to pass the winner-take-all bill. They refused. Now he's pushing once again the Republican governor to call a special session to pass the winner-take-all bill. The governor, Republican, says he won't do it unless the votes are there. And for the time being, it now looks, because of this guy McDonnell, it looks like the votes are not there yet. But Trump took to social media accusing McDonnell of being a grandstander. He then added, I will be targeting 2 other Republicans who refuse to go along with this plan. Trump says we must bring, this is what Trump called it, we must bring common sense to this over-complex electoral map that costs taxpayers too much. Sure, that's why he wants this bill passed. So if I were Jack Smith, I would be paying attention to all of this because it's illegal. What kind of pressure is Donald Trump going to be putting on Republicans in Nebraska? The same kind of pressure he put on Rusty Bauer, the Speaker of the Arizona House, Republican, to call a special session and award Arizona to Trump and not Biden. What kind of illegal pressures will Donald Trump be placing on the Republicans in Nebraska to turn Nebraska into a winner-take-all state? Jack Smith will be paying attention. And you know, Senator McDonnell, having stood up to Donald Trump, imagine what his life is like right now. Remember Raffensperger, Kemp in Georgia? Remember all the Republicans who wouldn't find the votes Trump needed in 2020? All the death threats, all the hiding that they had to go into? Republicans. Rusty Bauer, Republican Speaker of the Arizona State House, wouldn't cave back in 2020. All the death threats that got phoned into Rusty Bauer. You can be certain Jack Smith is paying attention. As I keep reminding you, the crimes Donald Trump is committing now do not fall under the protective umbrella of the Supreme Court's July 1st immunity ruling. They're going to try to steal this election. This time, he's not doing it from the Oval Office. He can't claim it's the official function of the commander-in-chief. Donald Trump is holding fewer and fewer rallies. He's not packing rooms, so he doesn't want to go out there. He's holding fewer rallies in 2024 than he did in 2020, and fewer rallies than he did in 2016. He's given up on trying to win this thing. Now he's trying to steal it. I'll tell you when to worry about the polls. Worry about the steal. Well, it hasn't been a good couple of days for Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, a deeply conservative pastor from North Carolina who's running for governor. Pastor Robinson has called homosexuals maggots. He not only denies climate change, he says science shouldn't even be taught until kids are in the 6th grade. Robinson calls abortion murder. He denies Hitler exterminated 6 million Jews, calling the Holocaust liberal hogwash. He has also come out against members of the transgender community, gay pride, Muslims, immigrants, and he calls COVID a globalist conspiracy to defeat Donald Trump. That would be the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, who Donald Trump calls Martin Luther King on steroids. Well, he's on something. Trump calls him better than Martin Luther King. Well, something's happening to Mark Robinson. On Monday, Republican Tennessee Governor Bill Lee withdrew his endorsement of Mark Robinson for governor, which is odd because Tennessee Governor Bill Lee shares the same exact values as Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Bill Lee of Tennessee helped pass a new 6-week abortion ban with no exceptions for rape or incest or the mother's health. He endorsed and signed a bathroom bill that persecutes members of the transgender community. He passed legislation guaranteeing that faith-based adoption agencies could take state government money and still refuse to work with same-sex couples hoping to adopt. And until a federal judge called it unconstitutional, Governor Bill Lee helped ban drag shows in Tennessee. But on Monday, for some reason, he withdrew his endorsement of Lieutenant Governor Pastor Mark Robinson and Lieutenant Governor for governor of North Carolina. What's going on? Tom Tillis, the senator from North Carolina, announced on Monday he's taking back his endorsement of Mark Robinson. Brian Kemp, the governor of Florida, announced he too was taking back his endorsement of Mark Robinson. And now CNBC reports that Charles Koch's Americans for Prosperity has stopped running ads endorsing Mark Robinson. Up until this week, the Koch brothers were funding a major part of Pastor Robinson's ground game. The Koch brothers were paying for workers to knock on doors, reminding voters to cast their ballots for Mark Robinson. And then the Republican Governors Association on Monday announced that it will no longer be running commercials in support of Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. North Carolina Public Radio reported yesterday that Mark Robinson's entire campaign staff, except for 3, quit on Sunday. His campaign manager, his deputy campaign manager, his finance director, director of operations, all quit on Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. What happened? Is it because the polling averages show Robinson losing to his Democratic opponent, Josh Stein, by 9 points? Is it because Mark Robinson's views are simply too extreme? No. Turns out everything Mark Robinson says and believes in all fall within the crosshairs of the Republican agenda. They don't approve of his lifestyle. Some stuff came out. Now, listeners to my show know that Lieutenant Mark Robinson last month was accused of frequenting 2 porn rental places, taking out hundreds and hundreds of videos, really hardcore stuff, bootleg stuff that you're not allowed to sell in North Carolina, stuff that came down from New York. He also, I told you, was on several, there were reports last month that he joined several adultery dating sites. But last Thursday, it all became too much for the Republican Party. Now, he's not quitting, but he's being disowned by the Republicans after CNN last Thursday uncovered some embarrassing postings that the lieutenant governor made to several porn sites where he called himself a black Nazi who believes slavery isn't all that bad. Robinson also said he enjoys watching porn that involves transgender women, or as he calls it, tranny on girl. And then he talked about carrying on an affair with his sister-in-law. Some of the posts were so graphic, CNN is refusing to repeat them. Well, Robinson is now threatening to sue CNN and, like I said, refusing to drop out. He also said, I'm assembling a team to disprove all of CNN's reporting. But WRAL News in North Carolina reports this morning that Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson's staffers all quit after he refused their offer to bring in information technology experts who could examine the lieutenant governor's computers and cell phones and prove he never visited these sites, including, according to CNN, Ashley Madison, a dating site for married men to cheat on their wives. Well, what happened? He's no different from any other Republican. He is no different from any other Republican. He is allegedly cheating on his wife. He calls himself a black Nazi. How many Nazis, self-proclaimed Nazis, has Donald Trump invited to Mar-a-Lago? There's nothing he has said or nothing he has done, like committing adultery, that makes him any different from all the other MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump and the rest of the Republican Party are willing to forgive. In fact, Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist with 30 credible sexual assault allegations against him. All Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson is accused of is enjoying porn. What's wrong with porn? You know, there are photos of the First Lady. This is the only one I can show you. Former First Lady. This is an actual photo of Melania Trump. I can't show you the one where she's completely naked, handcuffed to Donald Trump's Boeing, pointing a pistol. In this one, she's pointing a pistol. She calls it art. She calls her naked photos pointing a gun and handcuffed to Donald Trump's Boeing art. So what's the problem with Mark Robinson? He's no different than any other Republican. You know, if forcing Republican politicians to quit because of their sexual hypocrisy, because they lash out at the transgender community but enjoy watching porn, if making Republican candidates drop out because they criticize and pass judgment on what they secretly enjoy, then you would have to disqualify the entire Republican Party. I'm talking about you, Lindsey Graham. Mark Robinson's problem isn't that he may or may not cheat on his wife, that he loves porn, that he's into transgender porn. His problem is he's black. That's his problem. The Republican Party woke up and said, oh, he's black. It's almost as though they're racist, isn't it? I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Debate Watch Party, Good versus Evil, October 1st. Coach Walsh versus the evil, inveterate liar, J.D. Vance. If you would like a link to the show, go to a link to the watch party, go to shopdavidfeldman.com or davidfeldmanshow.com. And thank you to Mila and Bob in the chat room for keeping things civil. I put a link to my Facebook page in the chat room if you want to keep the conversation going. Let's just see if it works, because I notice the chat continues after the live show stops. Please share this. Please like this. Please subscribe to my newsletter and, of course, this channel. Thank you so much for putting up with me. I appreciate it. I will see everybody tomorrow live at 2:30 a.m. Eastern. Bye.